Hey singers, welcome back to the weekly warm-up. I'm Laura, and today I want to talk about running out of breath. Is this a problem for you? This is such a common complaint among singers, and today I want to help you figure out why it's happening to you. I've made videos about this sort of thing before, but the problem is, without me being able to see and hear you, I can't tell you what is going wrong, and there are actually multiple different causes for running out of breath. Maybe there's a problem with the inhalation, maybe there's a problem with the way you're using the breath as you sing. All of these things can contribute to that feeling that you're always having to breathe more frequently than you think you should. So today, let me show you an experiment you can do to figure out why you're having trouble making long phrases with your singing. And then I'm going to make some suggestions based on what you figure out so that you can really start to address the problem and improve your singing. So singers, let's begin by establishing our goal, a healthy breath cycle. And I would define a healthy breath cycle for singing as consisting of two parts. First, we have an inhalation that is appropriately sized and expands into a relaxed body. There are three really essential elements there. The first is that it is the correct amount of breath for the phrase ahead. The second is that it creates expansion around the torso, either into the back, under the arms, in the belly, hopefully not up into the high chest, but kind of that 360-degree feeling of expanding around the body. And then the muscles of the torso must be relaxed enough on inhalation that that expansion can happen. So those are our three elements for inhalation. And then on the other half of the cycle, we're going to have a singing phrase where the breath is regulated by muscular action in the low abdomen, full closure of the vocal folds, and a high forward placement of the voice. So when we are singing, we need to make sure that we are actually supporting with the correct muscles, not creating tension elsewhere in our body. We also want to make sure that the vocal cords themselves are actually coming together the whole way so that we're not leaking a bunch of air. And we also want to tap into our resonance so that we are not having to push and sing loudly when we could just be resonating to carry the sound out into the room. So if that is the healthy breath cycle that we're hoping to create, let's figure out which of those 6 elements, 3 on inhalation and 3 on the singing phrase, is missing for you. I'm going to ask you to sing back and forth between 2 pitches in your middle range. So something like, you're just going to go back and forth until you run out of breath. Now, singing that is not going to improve your voice, change your voice. The whole benefit of this experiment is the awareness that you bring to it. So as you go through the singing phrase, I want you to pay attention and ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1. What is the quality of the sound I am creating? And I don't mean quality in terms of a good sound or a bad sound. I mean, is the sound thin? Is the sound pressed? Is the sound breathy? Is there a roaring quality? And by that, I mean, is there sort of a lunge of breath after you start? Something like, ah. That's what I would call sort of a roaring sound. Question number 2 to ask yourself is, where do I feel muscles tightening? Do you feel them in the low belly? Do you feel them more in the upper belly, right under the ribs, maybe where you think the diaphragm is? Do you feel tightening in the throat? Are you clenching your buttocks? Are your hips shifting forward? Check out wherever muscular work is happening as you go through the singing phrase, and this will most likely increase over the course of the phrase. So really stay alert and pay attention to what is happening, which muscles are increasingly engaging as you go through that long phrase. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, when you run out at the end of the phrase, is the first thing you do inhale or exhale? Now, this is going to take a lot of focus, and you have to stay calm and observant, because a lot of people, even like very serious people, when they are running out of breath, will do kind of like a silly, out of control thing. I see this all the time where singers will go, ah. Don't do that. Don't get out of control, because you need to be able to observe what is happening in your body. Did I just inhale or did I exhale? Well, I kind of exhaled and did a bunch of other weird stuff. I leaned forward, I threw my head back, I made an extra sound that was not singing. Don't let that happen to you. Pay attention, stay focused. Now, it's very likely that in order to be able to actually answer all three of these questions, you're going to have to do this experiment multiple times. So I'm going to put a timestamp right where the exercise starts so that you can just back up to that same spot and do it over and over again. Or you're welcome to just pause the video and do it as many times as you need. But do not let the answer to any one of those three questions be, I don't know, or I'm not sure. If you do it multiple times with full attention and you just can't tell what's happening, then use your phone to video yourself doing it and then answer as though you were watching someone else singing. What is the quality of that sound? What muscles do you see working as that person is singing? Do you see the strings on their neck sticking out? Do you see their hips shifting forward? Do you see them kind of crunching in their six-pack muscles? What is happening in those muscles? And number three, what happens when they run out of breath? Are they exhaling or inhaling? It is so important for you to have clear answers to all three. So let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to sing on the pitches G and A. That's kind of like the middle of my range. You should do a pitch that works for you. So feel free to sing on a different set of notes, but do go back and forth. Don't just hold one note, because we tend to kind of grip in a slightly different way when we're just holding one note. So take your regular old inhalation. I'm going to put the timestamp here and let's go. So what did you find out? If you don't have clear answers to all three questions, go back and do it again. But if you know now what the quality was, where the muscular activation was happening, and what happened when you ran out, let's talk about your results. First, let's talk about the quality of that sound. If the sound was full, balanced, free, consistent, then move forward. You're probably pretty happy with your breath. But it's likely that you're not running out of breath if that is the case. So if you found that one of those elements, either the sound was really tight or the sound was really kind of breathy, like almost like a balloon letting out its air, or you had that roar, any one of those things signals that on the outgoing phrase, so on the singing phrase, you are not regulating the breath with that combination of the low abdomen, full closure of the vocal folds, and that high forward placement. What I mean by this is the breath needs to be powered, sent out from those low abdominal muscles, not the six-pack muscles. And it needs to be regulated from here by the vocal folds themselves, fully closing. If they close fully, you get a sound that is clear. That sound has full vocal closure. If the sound is obviously my chords are not coming all the way together because that is creating that breathy sound, and that means that I'm losing air every time the chords come sort of close, and so I'm able to phonate, but because I don't have the full vocal closure, the air is just leaking. So the contrary can also be true, or the converse. We can also be squeezing so tight in the muscles of the throat, or squeezing hard up here around the solar plexus, around, trying to sort of sing from the diaphragm. Make sure you check out last week's video if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you're creating a lot of pressure here to try to regulate the sound, the sound will be hard or maybe really pressured. Either way, if we want to reestablish that healthy balance between low abdominal engagement and full vocal closure, then I want you to work with SOVT exercises. These are semi-occluded vocal tract exercises like buzzing, Things like the kazoo pufferfish, woo, or sounds like V, Z, zh. Things like this, which create kind of a buzzing sensation, are great for helping you to feel what it feels like when the air is sort of limited, not here and not here, but we're just engaging here, sending it out, and then balancing it with that regulation of that partial occlusion. So when I do something like, I can do that for a long time because I can feel that this work is being balanced by the back pressure of my lips coming together and apart. Now, I've made a whole video about SOVTs, so I don't want to get too much into it here. I'll just link it in the cards, but make sure that you are looking at that kind of work and trying to create that kind of breath balance in your vowel singing. So if the problem was a thin or a roaring or a breathy sound, then what you want to do is work with something like work on that, and then go into your vowels, ah, and match the way your breath is working in your body. The second question that I asked you to ask yourself was, where do you feel muscular engagement? We want to get back to feeling the muscular engagement here in the low belly, not in the upper abdomen, in the neck, in the buttocks, with the hips pushing forward. Any one of those places is tension that is kind of getting in the way of that appropriate breath support. So if one of those things is happening, if the hips are coming forward, and this is really quite common, more than you might think. So maybe if you caught yourself on video doing that, try to stand in a slightly caveman-like stance like this, and try that experiment again and see if you can create more activation in the low abdominal muscles without resorting to the tensing that happens when you push the hips forward. If the place that you felt tightness was here in the throat, then we need to move the activity down into the lower belly. And I have a lot of videos. One of them was very recent about how to not try to sing from here and actually move the activity down here. That will also work to take some of the pressure off here, or you can do some exercises that specifically address throat tension. But if what you're noticing is a lot of muscular work that is outside of this area, then tension is probably the problem, and tension as a substitute for appropriate breath support. That is probably what's getting in the way of you singing a longer phrase. So what about question 3? When you ran out of breath, did you inhale or exhale? Don't guess. Tell me what really happened. Did you ah and feel the breath come right back in, or ah? Did you actually have an H sound afterward? If that was the case, then logically, you weren't truly out of breath. You actually had breath you needed to release at the end of the phrase. And this is so common that singers who think they are constantly running out of breath are taking bigger and bigger and bigger inhalations and creating so much pressure that they feel choked with the air and the sound is very, very, very tight, so that you need to actually let breath out. It's like if I ask you to hold your breath for a long time, what happens at the end? You let the breath out before you breathe in. And that is happening to you when you are singing, if you are ending your phrases with a. So if that is the case for you, then the fix is very counterintuitive. But I want you to start working on taking either a smaller breath or taking your normal breath, letting half of it out, and then singing your phrase. You will be astonished at how much more control and comfort you have in your singing by just taking smaller breaths. So you remember when we were talking about the ideal breath cycle, we need a breath that is sort of appropriately sized for the phrase. And if you have it in your head that you are a person who runs out of breath, you're probably going to get yourself into the habit of taking the biggest possible gasping breath anytime you're going to sing anything. Hallelujah. Right? So there, you're laboring the cycle. You're taking too much breath in for the length of the phrase. Whereas a smaller breath, hallelujah, that's all I needed. It was a short phrase. And in order to reacquaint yourself with how much breath you actually need, you need to start off by taking smaller breaths, or by taking your normal breath, letting some of it out, and then singing your phrase. Experiment with this. It is quite scary at the beginning. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of stuff around breath, the feeling of running out of breath, creates sort of a panicking sensation in the body. So be patient with yourself as you do this work. Don't give up right away. But I think it's very likely a lot of the time that singers who think they are running out of breath are in fact holding their breath and taking too big of an inhalation. And you need to recalibrate your ability to take an appropriately sized breath. Now, it's not as hard as you think. This is not something that you need to go and get some kind of rocket science degree for. Think about the way that you speak. Do you ever run out of breath while you're speaking? Do you ever have that feeling when you're speaking that you're so choked and you need to let out a bunch of breath? No, you are really well regulated with your speech, and you can get there with your singing too. So what did you find out? I am so excited to hear from you, whether this worked, whether you discovered something new. I'm sure that there are many of you out there who are going to discover today that you were not out of breath after all, and that in fact, you were actually holding your breath as you were singing, and I hope that that creates some change for you. Let me know how it worked. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I would love to sing with you next Thursday and every Thursday. And until then, thank you for practicing.